Welcome back to another episode of The Clean Truth. I am Dawson Holt.
I am Ben Jones, and tonight we have two absolute handsome studs on the podcast with us. We've got Vince Little and Derek Meegan. Can we get a quick round of applause for these two gentlemen? Well, thank you for being here.
Yes.
And can we get just a very quick introduction? If people don't, maybe give us a fun fact, something maybe people don't know, just real fast. Derek, we'll kick it to you first.
Yeah, I just want to say welcome to the AmeriKick takeover of The Clean Truth. Ben, Dawson, thank you for joining us today. My name is Derek Meegan. I'm co-coach of the AmeriKick national team. And I'll kick it off over to Vince.
Yes. We wanted to start by asking you guys a few questions. Viewers want to know, what was your favorite subject in 6th grade?
Okay. Man, I couldn't tell you that.
And then we wanted to ask Dawson, what was your most monumental childhood trauma?
No comment.
Okay.
No comment. No. Yeah.
Put that in the notes.
So that's your introduction, Vince?
I like dubstep.
Yes, we know.
Yeah. All right.
Solid fact.
Good. All right. Well, Ocean State's is coming in a couple weeks. So, are you guys bringing the whole squad?
Yeah.
Oh,
Most
yeah.
of the guys are on the East Coast, so pretty much the whole team will be there. Plus all the regional guys. I'm 5 hours away from the tournament, so I have about 20 plus kids from my school going in general.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think we got good AmeriKick representation across the board. Couple schools bring out a lot of kids.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, so as of now, you guys are the coaches of the national team. Can you guys, get some highlights or, kind of talk about some of the athletes that are on that team?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely want to start this out by just showing a chart that shows the value of AmeriKick since Vince and I took ownership in the coach's position. So if you can see here, this vertical inflection point, the fair market value of the AmeriKick national team soared into the over $80 billion range. So definitely a lot of strong growth.
Yeah, all right. You guys are legit.
I do my own version of the graph, and if you notice, we are upward trending.
Very much upward trending. I think Vince and we started taking over a lot more of the coaching responsibilities. I would say 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
At this point. And it's been great. It's been really fun. We put a lot of effort into it, a lot of focus. Beyond just our individual coaching, we do ongoing trainings. We've had a couple of our seminars, our master classes, dropping some major vibage, teaching some karates. So it's been a good ride. It's been really fun.
Obviously we were teammates from back in the day, but it kind of just worked out because, Derek's from California and I'm from Philly, and I opened my school in Jersey. And out of, chance, Derek decided to get a full ride to Temple, which is literally.
That was pretty nice. That was pretty nice.
So as soon as he flew down and just started living there, it was so simple. 30-minute drive down. I had a lot of kids that were into trad bow and just traditional forms that, wasn't my specialty. So it was cool to kind of bring him in whenever we brought these team trainings. And then we kind of got to have that full, view for the kids, whether they wanted to do kind of my version of things and then Derek's specialties. So it really kind of put everything together.
No, it was great too. Cause like Vince said, we grew up on the same team. We were always good friends. The plan going in, when I went to school, it wasn't that now I'm over there, we're going to start, running a team together or anything. It was just pretty organic. He asked me to come help teach some of the competition kids at his school. And, we just got comfortable teaching with each other on the mat, started some overlapping in terms of what kids we were teaching. And then, it's a natural extension on starting coaching the team.
It was kind of cool. We didn't even, I think the first tournament back from me going to things and coaching was Battle, I think after COVID, 2021, 2022, whatever it was. And I remember I went to 1 or 2, and then Derek was like, hey, I have students, I'm going to come too. And I was like, oh, cool. So then it just kind of naturally became this co-coaching thing that now is what it is.
Yeah, and we have fun with it. You know, it may not look like it, but you know, we definitely have fun with
We're
it.
pretty serious. You know, our agents keep it to us. You know, dialing.
Yeah, I mean, especially like when you've got a competitor going, watching you guys on the side is like, there's no telling what you guys are thinking. You're like, oh, are they even doing this stuff right? You're never excited about performance. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The poker
Right,
faces is extremely important.
No emotions,
right?
so.
Yeah.
No, well, sometimes you hear the music and you can hear like it's influenced by, both of you guys, and you guys are like cheerleaders to them, so you'll be, womping, to their music. It's a lot of womping.
One could say womp. Yeah, one could say womp.
Yeah,
the womp game it's up there.
I womp.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you could say
heavily womp.
Yeah, well, So post COVID, AmeriKick is you guys, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's a good answer. Yeah,
Sure.
We were always behind the scenes, though. It was like, I mean, Billo, Allie, some of those guys, even like Cody. The last few years, I was always coaching Cody. So like even when I was opening my school, like 2017 to 2019, 20, when Cody was still competing, I mean, I don't give any credit because he did it all on himself. But like even Andrew Backus, when he made his like little 2-3 year return, he started he came over and he was like, "Yo, let's maybe run some hands," and then and then Andrew
just refer to the chart. Just refer to the chart.
Right.
We were always kind of there doing stuff, but then I feel like after COVID, when I just saw everybody starting to come back to tournaments, and I was like, I want to go. So.
Yeah.
And we started going around a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't leave us out. Right. Well, that's cool. So obviously, like, as we talked about, you guys have stayed involved, right? Whether it was as competitors and then shifting over to the coaching role. So what do you think? What's your current take on like what competitors are like these days? And we'll do either one of you can answer, whether CMX or trad. But obviously, since you've stayed involved, what are things that you have seen develop or change over the last few years specifically?
Vince, do you want to take a crack at this one before I put many people down?
Honestly, I don't mean to put people down. I don't even mean it in a negative way because it's grown. I think I watched one with Jackson and Matt. I think a pod they did recently, and I kind of agreed with what they were saying. And I was teaching a black belt class to my team today, and I've been really like honing in on this. But I feel like nowadays, a lot of the kids have way more of the tools that we didn't have back then. Like they have way more in the arsenal, but it's the application to what to what they're doing, like the mental toughness. It's not that I'm not saying they're not tough, but I just feel like, I don't know. Today I was just like, they can do all these moves, my guys, but I was just focused on hitting a bag hard. Sometimes, and it kind of draws with the whole NASKA performances too. It's like they can do a ton of these releases, but sometimes it's just those big, getting their 7 cuts bigger or getting their 4 strikes bigger, stuff like that. I feel like that's kind of lacking right now. But the creativity, the releases, all that stuff has definitely gone to a new level.
Sure.
Yeah, like difficulty. Going off the charts, right? Releases, weapon manipulation, going crazy, right? But both like the application perspective, but I think also just having like raw, like inner competitiveness. That's like almost insatiable or like almost like ungovernable. I think that I don't see that in a lot of competitors anymore. Like really wanting to beat people in a healthy way, right? In a healthy way. I think it was a lot more common before for people to want to beat people like really badly, but there's a lot of unhealthiness about it. I believe like, competition is what makes other competitors on the circuit greater, right? If I go against somebody who I went against a lot, like Danny Etkin, for example, I always wanted to beat Danny Etkin all 9s, like throw a 10 in there even, right? But as soon as we came off the mat, as soon as we got out of off the competition floor, whatever, even if we were on it, like getting our scores or whatever, not in like focus mode, like we're chill, like we're friends, like it's all fun, like it's all chill, right? But I wish we could see like more like raw competitiveness and people going at it for the love of the game, as opposed to like, I guess I would call it like the TikTokification of NASKA, where like people are so focused on getting that clip, or like so focused on that like flash points.
Yeah, right.
You know. So yeah,
I heard this one story. I think I forget. I think it was it was like a men's overall he was telling me about from like 2010, and it was like Matt versus like Kalman, right? And they were going against each other in the weapons grands. And
it's a great story.
Matt like hit his form, right? And he gets like to the last move and he like drops. And Kalman's up next. And Kalman sees the drop and he gets angry. Like he gets angry because he couldn't straight up beat him, you know?
Mhm.
He wanted to beat him again. You know what I mean? It's like that fire I feel like is missing, you know? Like that, like I want to beat you so bad. Like that's what drives the sport, you know? Like that type of fire that happens in the ring, you know? So
yeah, no, I agree. That's why, like, you know, I don't agree with the philosophy wholeheartedly that some people have, like the no participation trophies and these kids ain't tough anymore. But I see like where they're coming from on certain aspects of that. So that's
for sure.
That's say on that.
For sure. Yeah, good take. Good take. Yeah, I definitely I've even talked to some of my students, or like there's some that get frustrated with, you know, when it comes to the tosses, like they feel like they have to throw the next big thing, or they have to throw the thing that's winning, right? For example, the Webster toss, I guess that's like one of the biggest things that's winning. A shuriken cutter is another one that is the thing that's winning. And
really, I've never seen one of those. Are they do
right, I don't know, but I try to tell the students, I was like, look, you gotta understand, like, yes, the crowd goes crazy when you do it, but you gotta understand, like, the three guys that are sitting in the chair are very old school. Grateful that they're right, but I'm very grateful that, you know, they're still willing to judge, you know, because it's, you know, they don't get paid to do it, but they're not gonna understand all the craziness that's going on. I mean, they're old school, they're black belts, right? So they're gonna understand that punch, or that front stance, or that single punch, or blocks, you know, all that stuff. And I remember Quebec Open when this past year I won Quebec Open. I did a creative weapons form, and I won my division, won the overall grands. David Bossonette, who was judging, told me, man, I gave you the 9 because of your cuts. Not all the other stuff that I did, not the tricking or the tosses, because of your cuts. You saw the fight in it. So yeah, I guess we need to see more of the fight in forms. I think that's
but what about that competitiveness, Dawson? Like when you're working with your students, how do you like get them to be like, yo, like lock in on this, like for real, like take this like seriously, like look at your competition, like don't back down. Like how do you like ignite that like in your students?
Well, I think it's one of those to where good question. I think it's.
And Ben, what's your childhood trauma?
There is not. I had a lovely childhood.
Right. I try to give them a lot of, I mean, I tell them what, you know, some of the stuff that I go through as well. Like I take, you know, little things can, you know, find little things that can help fuel you. Even when you win, like there's some people, like, for example, like not everyone's going to think your form is great, or not everyone's going to think your form is better than the other competitor. So I don't know, just take other things that just could help fuel you. Say like, well, my form was okay, but this part of the section should have been better. There's other variables like that. I don't know. I guess that's kind of an example that I could give. Yeah, that's off the top of my head.
All right. Yeah, I find it personally difficult. You know, I think a lot of times, you know, I see a lot of socializing at the tournaments and less dominating, right? And less aura by like some of these competitors. You know what I'm talking? Like before aura was even a thing for you know, Gen Alphas like watching this under us, right? Before aura was even a thing, like that was a thing among top competitors. They'd walk in and like, you know, the temperature would drop like a couple of degrees. You know what I mean? You'd be like, oh, shit.
Right.
And they were locked in a different way at the ring, and they were walking in a different way at the ring. And that's sort of like holistic, like, I don't know. I don't see that as much.
Once they have a few under their belt, it gets easier, you know, because especially for me, if I'm trying to motivate somebody, I try to get them to reference back in their head to that moment, you know, that they had beforehand, that stage moment where they killed it, or that division where it finally hit, and kind of trying to get them back to that in their head to spark it up. I think that's
right.
for sure.
Yeah,
but again, if they're through, it's like, okay, maybe it's a moment in your training where you had a breakthrough with them over Zoom in person. So I think there's a lot of that, just, you know, for me at least, like referencing a memory and just trying to get that to ignite something.
I think when it comes to like pulling that out within your students, I'll sometimes just ask them, I'm like, is this something you really want to do? Like, because if you're going to commit to this, you have to go 110%. Like, if this is really something you're going to do, and you're going to go all in, you're going to do every tournament, and you're going to train for this, and you're going to keep paying for lessons, you're going to keep buying weapons if you break them. Like, you have to be 100% committed and obsessed with it, or it's just, you're not going to get to the top if you don't get that.
And that reminds me of another thing that my boy Danny said to me one time. He taught at the AmeriKick camp one year, and I was doing this section. I was like, I was teaching a section as well, and I was like really trying to get these kids locked in on technique and like strikes. Like, yo, like you gotta strike hard, you gotta strike like straight across, like you gotta do your technique right. And I was just talking to him, I was like, I don't understand like why, you know, I don't see like a higher level of focus. And he told me something that I was not even like computable in my mind before he said it, but he said like not everybody wants to be a world champion. And I was like, that's true, I guess. Like, I don't really relate to that, but okay, like that makes sense.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Yeah, there's a quote that I remember hearing from Conor McGregor saying, your lack of commitment is like an insult to people that believe in you, your parents, your coaches, mentors. So, I mean,
don't even get me started on some parents taking it more seriously than the actual competitor themselves. Because I'll be ranting for the entire show. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, we see it all around. That's Vince, I want to ask you about I was up at your school a couple weeks ago teaching a seminar, which went really well, had a lot of fun. So I wanted to ask you about, like, I'm not the only one who's gone up there and taught a seminar. You've had some other, you know, previous competitors that are, well, current world champions, or they're high accomplished, such as myself, Ben Jones right here, Haley Glass. You have Mike Guthrie, Mason Bumba. So yeah, I want you to talk about that.
Yeah, so I mean,
hello, my good sir. Your cereal. I almost forgot. Use your utensil to eat that. I do.
So yeah, just do your thing, eat your cereal.
All right. So
you're eating cereal at 6:30 in the night.
All right. Well, what are you eating? What are you eating? What?
No, dude, it's like ketchup, and I don't even know what you put in this.
It doesn't sound appetizing at all.
Yeah, it's making me like, I'll figure it out later. I think about 20 minutes in, towards the end, we'll do a taste test.
Sweet.
We're talking about the world.
Yeah, we're talking. Talking about the seminars, and just what are some of the benefits that you've gotten, or you've been able to take away from, some of the guys that you've had. Has it impacted your students?
So I think, one of the main reasons why I do stuff like that is because, for me personally, I like to just kind of take myself out of my business and kind of expand.
Oh, sorry.
This guy.
Flip phone?
What do you have against flip phones?
Your seminars are great, Vince.
Anywho,
It's been a while since you had me, but it's all right.
yeah, well, you know,
It's all right.
busy taking calls.
When I'm not busy.
Yeah. All right. Wait, I'm gonna walk back in. I promise. So, I don't know. I just, for me, like for the business, for the school, and growing that, a lot of its success I've had is just taking myself out of it and kind of going to different events, meeting with different people, getting different coaches, stuff like that. And I remember going to the AmeriKick camps in Kansas City when I was a kid, and I remember just getting so much out of it, just being able to travel to that, being exposed to Derek, to Daniel Schulte, older name, but I made so many friends and I learned so much, not just from like being in my own karate school, which was great. Like I love my karate school where I started, but being able to just kind of take myself out of it and get all of those experiences, I feel like became like just helped me become the person I am today. So I wanted to kind of just do as much as I could with my students and by bringing people in, it's like, I feel like sometimes some school owners have the mentality of like, oh, like, you learn from me because like I'm your sensei and there's no like I do this best. But like I know I'm not the best at certain things, I know that Derek can run bow and a bunch of other stuff way better than me. I know I can't touch a sword compared to Dawson, but like I know that I can bring you guys in, and I know that not only will my kids get something out of it, but I'll get something from it, my team will get something from it. I always make sure that, when I bring in any type of instructor, especially lately, I don't just do an instructor a seminar for my students, but I do an instructor training for my staff so I can kind of bring their level up too. I mean, I just had Cody in a few hours ago today because my team was like, hey, we want to up our chuck skills. Like we need more. So I'm like, all right, cool. Cody. And then sword was like, all these kids were asking about sword. I'm like, all right, cool. Dawson, come in. And then Dawson helped my team too. So I think it's just, just overall just giving them as much experience as I can from the four walls that I'm in, because sometimes some kids don't have the opportunity to travel as much and they don't get that. So I want to try to bring that to them.
Perfect.
Great.
Yeah. Nice.
Great.
Yeah. So, I mean, like we've appreciated that coming in, and then I think it's a good perspective for other people to see, like, not only you're like bringing in the best in the world, first of all. So it's like, you're getting, well, it's easy to say when it's me and Dawson that you brought in.
The best in the world. Yeah.
No, but you're going for the people who are at the top of the game currently, which is something that I like too. And then, like you said, it's people outside of your community in a way too. But then you also have people like Cody Leck, who's an amazing competitor. I'd say underrated competitor.
Underrated, 100% underrated.
Still involved there, helping your guys, but kind of within your circle. So I think that's pretty cool, branching out, but also keeping it tight.
Yeah, we've been doing some athlete mindset stuff too. I had one of it was a strength and conditioning coach that was within my area. So I didn't even just it wasn't even martial arts, but I brought her in, and it was cool. It was the day before a tournament, and I brought her in, and she went over mentality stuff with them too. Nice. Which I think is kind of cool. I might bring in. I was thinking about doing some nutrition type of stuff too, but like just little outside the box stuff.
Yeah,
collaboration.
Important. Yeah,
I like it. So then, Derek, we'll talk about. Well, Vince already mentioned it earlier. You got a full ride to Temple, right? So, cool. What have you been studying recently, and what are you kind of really getting into with that full ride scholarship there?
Well, Ben, I am an adult now, so I did graduate. No,
okay,
I did graduate like a few years ago. But yeah, I studied information systems and economics, minored in political science. So I took a bit of an easy road in college, you could say. And then that was a joke, y'all. Like you could laugh. But then after college. I've been working as a technology consultant, helping businesses automate stuff, develop, custom business intelligence, data analytics, a bunch of like boring adult things that like aren't like super relevant to the karate world, I would say. But yeah, it's been super fun. I've been building a ton of apps recently, a lot of the AIs like ChatGPT, or there's a bunch of other ones that nobody really knows about, but that are like really helpful for building stuff. So I've been having a lot of fun, like just kind of jamming with those, building with those. I'm a co-organizer of Code and Coffee Philadelphia. So I don't know if there's any coders that are watching here, but join our events. We do meetups on Saturdays and Fridays, and we do some virtual meetups here and there as well. So yeah, it's been super fun. It's been super rewarding. Definitely very challenging though, and a little bit different from kicking and punching.
Well, for sure. Yeah. Cool. Well, I like what you said. Like, it's kind of, outside of the martial arts world, but then like you're saying with Chat GPT and things, you brought in or did this year the AmeriKick GPT, right?
Right. That's right.
Tell us a little bit about what was that? What all did you get with that, and like some of the process there?
Yeah, no, that was like a super fun app to build. It was more like at the start of last year, I was like, all right, I've been kind of, working regular 9 to 5 for a while, been doing like outside studying, like outside coding, like whatever for a while, but like never felt like I built anything that like somebody else like act or like multiple, like more than like maybe like one person like actually uses. So I was like, dang, like I kind of suck at building stuff. And so I was like, let me like, work on that and like build something that I can get people to use. Right. And so doing a lot of research, and I came across something, and they were like, you need to build in an industry that you know about and you have experience, and like even better, like have some semblance like of authority in. Right. And I was like, dang, like I really did not want to build a martial arts technology app, but I want to build something people use, just like resume piece, like just for the exercise, for the learning experience, just for like the growth. And so I texted Jarrett and I was like, hey, I'm going to build this for the tournament. And like, this is like a little like piece of it that I just kind of like messed around with. And just kind of like, vibe coded up in a couple days. And he was like, send it. And I was like, bet. And so then I worked for like 2 or 3 months, kind of cobbled together a few different things. So like the front end is like a template that I like meshed together with an API. And then like part of the back end was like a Google sheet. Like that's how I manage the users and like all of the chats. So if you wrote something in the chat there and you didn't want me to see it, not that there's anything too bad, but like I could see everyone's like, chats. I could see like when they logged on and stuff like that. Yeah, I hosted it like on the internet and stuff. Like bought like like a $5 URL or whatever, and then just like took a bunch of information off of the AmeriKick International's website. I guess I already told Moshe, but like I wrote a web scraper that logged into Juventex and like took all the division data and standardized it and like wrote it to a database. And so like I couldn't get that automation like working in the cloud before like the actual tournament. So I was just like in the tournament with my laptop, like off of like my phone, like hotspot, like just like running like the refresh. So when people were like, what is, when does like 5-year-old red belt start or whatever, they got that like new data and whatnot. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool. About like 45 people used it over the course of the weekend. It answered almost 200 questions with about like a 80-ish% success rate. So I would say like, for an MVP that was unpaid, it's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Is that something you ever want to do again in the future?
I'll maybe have to send an invoice for that one, Jarrett. Love you. But yeah, I'm working on a few different apps right now. So I got, a little bit of my plate full. Also like, work. My like real life work takes a lot of time. So, considering my girlfriend keeps telling me I'm working too much, probably not going to be swinging another AmeriKick GPT, but maybe. I've had some discussions with Moshe. We'll see.
Okay.
Cool. No, very cool. All right. Well, Vince, also something that I got to notice about some of your staff members, to name a few, that's Neil, also known as Neil, right?
Black belt front stances.
Right. And Chester's another one. Chet, Cody Like is also another. There's some of your staff members, but they're also competitors. So just kind of want to hear from your perspective, like what are some of the benefits from having your staff members as being active competitors?
So, well, there's a lot of upsides. I think the best is they're constantly training. They're constantly getting better. Where sometimes in the martial arts business space, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes they get comfortable, and sometimes you get to a certain point, you get the whatever degree belt you think you're, whatever, and then you're done. So it's good, like my whole staff. I mean, it's cool. We all have the same gym membership, so I'll see them at the gym. It was cool. Like I saw Neil and Aiden at the gym while I was at the gym earlier. Like we weren't working out. We just was like, hey, what's up? It was after Cody.
Thanks for the invite, Vince.
Yeah, well, he was busy with Bitcoin and stuff. So
yeah,
makes sense. But yeah, it's definitely cool because also they're constantly updating and learning things, whether it's at a tournament or something like that for the CMX world, because things are always evolving there. So instead of me bringing back the update or whatever, they're actually in real time seeing it. Mm-hmm. So it definitely helps. And then it helps with my competition team, because now they see exactly what they can aspire to. So it's definitely great on that end. And
can we give a quick shout out to Chet for his video editing skills?
Yeah,
I just want to say,
he's pretty good.
National team Instagram.
That's all Chet. Yeah.
Fire. And also with the national team Instagram, shout out our SEALs, which you guys, you don't even know what the SEALs are, but that's our super secret internal social media team. So not so secret. It's Kate, it's Maria, it's Samantha. So they're super good at all that. So I appreciate them. I guess like Allie too. Allie does some stuff.
Yeah, like here and there. Yeah, definitely. They're great. It's they send me the edit, I convert it, throw it on Facebook for the boomers like me. And it's good.
Content creation.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. 80 billion.
Yeah.
Parabolic.
Correct. Yeah. It's cool too. A lot of my competitors, I got lucky with this. A lot of them that are my staff now, they came from the school that I worked at before I opened. So, I had a lot of them come over to continue training for competitions, and they kind of grew into the instructor role, like Chet, Cody, Aiden, Neil, a lot of them just kind of, so instead of me, and I do have a lot of homegrown now because I'm at 8 years, but I had kind of a jump start, which was pretty cool. So
wait, and you have one studio, Vince, or?
I would say 1.5 right now.
1.5.
In process.
But yeah, it's at least it's all good. But we open probably later in May. So
it's called expansion.
Yes.
Nice. And where is that second school at?
What?
Where's the second school opening?
It's in Pennington. So the one that I'm in now is like Princeton Lawrenceville. This one will be like 15 minutes, 20 minutes away. So
very cool. Nice. If you're in the area, check it out.
Check.
All right, sweet. Well, then we're gonna talk, Derek. We're gonna mention something. This is like I can imagine this is probably history. Winning 2 Warrior Cups in one night.
Yeah. I'm not the only one. There's been a few, but yeah. Do we want to talk about that, or we want to talk about
what?
This beautiful
Warrior Cup. So Warrior Cup. You got 2 in one night.
This from my jackets. I've been really excited about this show.
I just see 2 young lads.
Yeah.
That
the Promac. This goes back to the Promac days. Yikes.
Youngins. That's history. Yeah. That's history. I forgot that I won anything. Like, that's history.
Yeah. No, we can't let the people forget. So tell us about that night. What was it like? How did it feel?
After the podcast, I'll be putting a bid up. Just
anyway. Okay. Can I speak, Vince?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, that what was that? AKA Grands 2016. That was a super cool tournament just overall. I was like just on fire that weekend. I won fighting. I won team fighting. I won all of my divisions. I won every single one of my runoffs. I won the overall, and then I won both of the Warrior Cup rounds as well. So very, very, very good tournament. One fun fact, I did injure myself on that Friday, actually. Doing a lesson with Jarrett. And I was just like doing one of the jumps like in the form, and I just like totally tore like my groin. And so that like was definitely painful. Sorry. That one wasn't even planned. That one wasn't even planned. So that was pretty sick. But yeah, so that was like super painful. And I was like hurt like the entire weekend. Went up I remember for the forums, I barely beat Mackenzie Emery. I beat her 4-9 to 3. And then went to the Warrior Cup round against Stowell, Nine Finger Miyagi. So, shout out to Mason. We went up head to head, and I just remember Jarrett speaking to us before that, both of us, and he was like, hey, Derek, I know you're going to win, but Mason, good job. No, he was like, no matter what, it's going home to AmeriKick. So, both of you guys, go out, do it, go crazy. And so that was super cool. And then for the weapons, that's another interesting story because the summer previous, I started preparing music for my weapons form for like the overall round. And so that was before doing music with trad weapons was cool, right? And was a thing. And before anybody even did like musical trad in the division, which should be allowed, but that's another story. And so my dad is the one who actually mixed it. So I don't know if y'all know, my dad is a musician, way back when, 1840, whatever. And so, he had some experience with like digital, like mixing tools and stuff like that. And he found like this song and we were mixing it and we were practicing it for months, but I never got like a good opportunity to debut it in that season before. And so I was going up in the overall round, and I'm pretty sure it was y'all's guy, Duncan, double bow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Duncan Lowry, yeah.
And so shout out to Duncan. And I was going against him, and I was talking to my dad, and he's like, maybe you should do the music. If you do the music, it's like more surefire bet. And I was like, dude, trust, like lock in. I'm no music on the overall round, and I'm going to save it for the Warrior Cup round. And that's what I mean. When these kids, they're not like locked in on like winning like that. You know what I mean? Like they're not just like, all right, bet, like this is a done and over, right? Like I just had that like distinct visualization, like I am taking over this division. I'm dominating this. Like I'm already looking at this Warrior Cup round. Like, what do I need to do in order to take the cup home, not just the overall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So took that overall round, and then I went up against Jake Presley actually for the Warrior Cup round. Shout out to Jake, love Jake. And yeah, I did the music, and I had this like spot in the music where like I at the end of the form I do this big stab, dude. Vince already, I do the stab, and I like turned it and then I pulled it. And so like the music like stops, and I just hit it perfectly, like one go, and then it was like 2 cups, and it was like super cool, and it was like kind of like a surreal moment, like definitely sort of like highlight pinnacle of my competition career. I don't think I've had anything more notable than that. And so it's somewhat like historic. There's a short list of people who did it, and I think even less people who did that at the junior level. And so it was awesome. Yeah, definitely.
That's sweet.
Very cool.
Super cool, man. Super cool. Yeah, I was there that night. I remember watching it. I mean, beating 2 competitors that are well respected in NASKA. You got Mason Stowell on the forums and Jake Presley in the weapons. I mean,
yeah, what can you say, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
and obviously Mason was a lot younger, right? And at the time, like I was always like kind of significantly older than him. But on that note, I just remember once he started to get older, and that was around where I started to like exit out of competition. It was really cool to see him like get to like I got to like, I would say great level, but like he's just beyond that, both on the NASKA circuit and then also on the the more traditional circuits abroad. Like it was really cool to watch him become like super athlete, Thanos like level competitor. So
for sure.
And then Jake too. Jake, low key. I mean, Ben, I know you do trad bow, but this won't hurt your feelings. I think Jake Presley, GOAT traditional bow, like bar none. That to me, I think is definitely a fact. So
I can get behind that.
And he was just he's like warming up, locking it. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you warming up? Stop it.
What, Jake?
Like, yeah, I guess when he's warming up his trap, I'm like, come on, we know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, he walks in. He's farming aura before he even hits the stage, and dude, it's just over.
Yeah. So so good.
And he's been so consistent. How many years has he? He doesn't even enter any other division. Like, it's crazy.
No.
Like,
Yeah, it's just
he doesn't even enter. He doesn't even stretch. Like, he just.
No stretching.
Yeah, I don't really know his routine, but my assumption is because he's getting busy with stunts right now. So I mean, last I talked to him, I think he's in New York. But yeah, I mean, he's busy with that, so he can't. I think he still trains martial arts, obviously, but like, I don't know how much forms training he does. So I mean, I think he gets to a tournament and like trains at midnight where no one's in the tournament room by himself, and then the next morning he just gasses it and takes over. So I mean,
and it's also just like getting to that environment too, that same environment. It's almost like he might be it might be like a Severance type situation. He like walks into the competitive, like the competition area, and he just like,
it's kind of like going back to the memory thing earlier. Like, he has so many built up just moments in his head from just going off, all those times he's won a cup and this and that.
Talk about winning. He was like 6 years old. Like, how old was he when he upset Jackson in the Warrior Cup round that one time? Did I misremember that? But I felt like you did.
I have no idea. Couldn't tell you.
Sorry,
I wasn't competing.
He was young.
Yeah, he was young. So
it's sword. He can just like and then locked. I feel like if you have enough of those, you can turn it on whenever you want.
Facts.
For sure. Well, that's something you guys gotta. I mean, that's something these kids nowadays have to hopefully can figure out. I think they're getting better. Hopefully, with the right coaching, with you guys being present. So speaking of coaching, I know we kind of talked about your team a little bit. Like, let's get deeper into the dynamics of both of you guys coaching.
Co-coaching.
Co-coaching. Yeah, get more deeper into that.
I would say, it's the old 1-2 punch.
Can I start this? I think I have a good little
go.
So I think the one thing that is cool about us is one, not even in a weird way, but like, we don't have to be here. We want to be here. As Derek says, like, he has a full other thing going on, full business thing. And then at my school. So like, we do this for fun. We do this because we love it, Mm-hmm. And we also come from completely different walks of life. We got smart guy and we got school of hard knocks. There's two different vibes. So it's just
West Coast, East Coast.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and our coaching styles kind of like clash but work. I like the way I remember this was
complementary is the word.
Yeah. I remember it was the same night. The way we motivated somebody was so different, but it worked for the individual person. I think it was Allie. Allie was getting ready to run her trad weapons, and I just knew that like she works, with Derek. So I just stayed away. And Derek's sitting there like, it almost looked like she was like inputting a math equation to her to get her wound up, like, taking through the blah, blah, blah. And like she goes up and she hits her form, right? And then Shane's up next, who I work with. And Shane's getting ready. And I just went over to him like, yo, you remember when you lost to him by 100th last tournament? And I'm like, like I'm just like,
I really build the kids up and then for Vince to smack them down, right? And like, we play a little good cop, bad cop, like, here and there.
It's the perfect yin and yang.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, two different wavelengths for sure.
Yeah.
And two different styles of teaching. I think that's why a lot of the times I prefer to co-coach with Vince over like solo coach an individual, because he definitely provides a lot of things that I don't. And likewise, or vice versa. And that makes it so that when we both coach a single kid, like, they're more successful, and it's also easier for us to coach, right? Because I can like specialize in what I like to focus on. He can specialize in what he likes to focus on and does best. So like definitely different teaching styles. I feel like Vince's lessons are like very, very go, 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 go a lot, like very, very rep oriented, like a lot, very, very high energy. And sometimes like I can be like that sometimes, but other times, like most of the time I like to like flip the switch on that and just be like extremely nitpicky, extremely annoying, like hyper fixated on certain things, like almost like logically. And so, you know, Vince really like rounds out my coaching, I feel like a lot. And I think that's a key ingredient to our success. I also think, you know, being friends, definitely like under everything, right? So like the coaching, the team, the tournaments, the karate, the travel, getting paid, whatever, under everything, like me and Vince are friends, like first. You know what I mean? And so that makes it like so much easier to go to the tournaments. Because I know I'm going to a tournament, I'm just like, yo, me and Vince get to hang out like for the weekend. You know what I mean? And on top of like doing all the stuff like at the tournament.
Yeah.
Same thing when I go to the karate school, you know, and I walk in the karate school, Vince is sitting on the mat going, I knew I smelled ugly. You know, It's like, it's always like a good time, always a good vibe. And then, you know, the other factor with that, I guess, is the time factor at this point, right? I moved to Philadelphia in 2018. We've been sort of been on the mat teaching with each other since then. There's a comfortability like component there. Like it's really easy to bounce off of each other when we're teaching. I mean, Ben, you got a dose of teaching with us. So like, what do you think? Like, do we like operate well and like bounce off of each other well? Like,
oh, for sure. Yeah. It's like the chemistry is very good. It's like you guys.
So that's definitely an important component. Yeah. And then and also like Vince said this too, like having fun with it. Like, you know, you see, you know, maybe we come on the podcast here, we're very serious and focused and professional and like well presenting. And you know, when we're watching our students, it may not seem like we're having a good time. But you know, we are, and it's very fun for us and it's very rewarding. And so I think bringing that energy is really important, not only for our experience, but I think for the kids definitely too, to feel like we're approachable, to feel like they can talk to us, you know, but you know, converse to that, still like a respect component, right? And so if we're gonna have like either, you know, you either have like, hey, you know, you're friendly or you're not friendly, and if you're not friendly, it's really easy to maintain order. But if you are friendly, you know, sometimes kids can be like, oh, you're my friend, and like blah, 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 you know. So I'd rather have that problem though. Like we're too friendly and we need to like enforce some structure sometimes versus the opposite where like kids don't feel comfortable with us or like feel like we're mean or like whatever. We always want to support the kids. So I think, you know, having fun with it breaks down that like barrier a little bit.
There too. So sometimes like if one feels more comfortable, like too comfortable, one of us will kind of jump in and be like, hey, like, you know, and it kind of brings them back down. Like depending on the relationship with whoever, you know, we have each other to kind of like check.
Play off the other. Yeah, for sure. And then I think having that baseline level of like, we're having fun, we're comfortable, but there's still a respect component, right? Then that makes it so much easier to like push and pull like the levers that moves and motivates like a kid. You know what I mean? Because now I can speak to them like one-to-one, right? And they're not like, for example, I remember, I won't say the competitor's name, but at a particular tournament, this competitor was walking with their parent and they were walking, like just so happened to be like walking like in the same towards me, right? And just from pure body language, like I could tell, I was like, all right, like the dad is pissed, the kid is pissed, right? And they're coming to me, and the dad comes to me and he's like, look, can you speak some sense into him, right? And so I was like, yeah, sure, right? And so I like go over, I pull the kid to the side, and I was like, hey, like, you know, what's going on? I'm fine. Like literally, like physically, like closing up, right, on me. And so I was like, look, like it's almost like you guys watch School of Rock? Ever? No? Too young?
School of Rock,
You
no.
know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about?
Black?
Yeah, Jack Black.
Yeah.
He was like hungry. He's
yes.
like, got in trouble. I'm hungry, right? It was kind of like that situation where I'm like, look, you know, I'm not here to yell at you. Like, I don't even know what happened. So like, it's not like I really like care this way or one or the other. Like, I want to understand like what's going on. Right. Mm-hmm. And they're just, oh, well, you know, dad was telling me I wasn't warming up enough, and like I wasn't like focused enough, and I wasn't blah blah blah. And this was like Friday morning before eliminations, right? Like just like that, like pre-tournament kind of run through. And I was like, all right, you know, in my mind, I'm like, this is probably the reality, right? Probably like this competitor was doing some stuff, but likely the parent had a point, right? On the other side, the parent, like, number one, may either have not been communicating that too well, right? Or number two, which is like the most often like scenario, is that this like communication link between parent and kid on like a coaching wave does not like compute. Like they just don't listen. Right? They don't want to hear what their parent has to say from a martial arts perspective, from a coaching perspective. And so you could say the exact same thing, but from a coach, right? And it comes off completely different, right? And so I kind of like just like to put that there for him. I was like, your parent probably has a point, right? But and then they're like, but they probably weren't saying it the right way. And then I'm coming at it from the point of like, I'm just trying to understand, which I am. Right. And then, you know, they felt comfortable. And I was like, look, this is what you need to do to get focused. Right. Even if you think you're warming up to like a good degree, you need to make it seem, or you need to warm up a little bit more probably, or like get a little bit more focused, or make it seem like you're a little bit more focused, or a combination of both. So at the very least, if you feel like you're getting warmed up enough, you get your parent off your back so you can focus and not be like mad going into this competition and having like scatterbrain, and then you're not going to compete well. Right. So I guess coming from a place of empathy, like with the kids, speaking to them level, not speaking down to them. And then, you know, seeking to understand them, building them up, keeping a positive vibe. That seems to me like the best way, like we've been able to handle stuff and keep a good culture too. That's what we want to do.
That can be such a big thing too, a big factor, you know, their headspace. You know, you've heard all the time kids that are way better in practice before the tournament, you know, and kind of getting them the transition to hitting a good form at a tournament can be so hard. You know, I know for personally, I had a lot of issues with it until I felt comfortable on the tour. You know, I feel like that's a big thing. You know, people feeling comfortable going into a ring. You know, maybe they're a kid that have watched all the Sport Karate Zone, Sport Martial Arts, and all these. They see who's in their division, they see who's winning, and then they have to go to an event, and now they're like starstruck, and they have to now like cook, you know, and they just and they just can't cook, like but like, and they do in practice, but like to be able to kind of translate that into now a crowd that, you know, they're so used to watching over a screen. You know, I think that's why coaches are definitely so important, because it's, you know, the parent definitely wants that for the kid. Of course, they want the best for their kid, but just the way it needs to be communicated and just everything Derek said with the, you know, with the respect sort of because of the experience the coach has in martial arts.
Yeah.
You know, there's just so much that goes into it, you know, and like, I think 100% having a kid in the right mindset is a make or break at the tournament. Doesn't matter how great their form is, how much they train for it, how, you know, conditioned they are. It's the mental. So
yeah, and it's different. It's different for each competitor. You know.
Yeah.
And you can't something may work for yourself, like for me personally. And you know, I know when I was a younger instructor, I would just try to say like, well, it's just like this, right? It's just get focused and you want to kill them and go and kill them, right? But for a lot of competitors, it's not actually like that. And it's like way more complicated. Each person is unique. And that kind of goes to what Vince was talking about in terms of like how we may differ in approaching hyping a student up, right? Sometimes you do need to say like, hey, right? Remember when you lost by a 1/100th, right? Like lock in, make sure that doesn't happen, right? Yeah. And then some kids, if you were to say that to them, they like would melt into their uniform, right? Like just completely crumble, you know? And so it's fine understanding like each student's you know, acute need.
Hot buttons.
Yeah, and with breaking down that barrier so you can say the hard things sometimes, right? Like you can, and when you're in a lesson and when you're teaching, you have to be critical, right? Like you have to critique, right? That is inherently being critical. And it's a lot easier to say it in a mean way than it is to say it in a nice way, right? And so it's better, I feel like, to create a relationship with your student where you can say the mean thing, but they receive it in the right way. They know where you're coming from. They know what you mean, and you've like given them a perspective where they understand they need to grow in certain ways and they're deficient in certain ways, and you're pointing that out so they can grow in that exact point.
It's a tough love, yeah.
100%,
Well said.
100% tough
said.
love. I mean, me and Vince, you know, somebody will do something and be like, dude, that was trash. Like, that was terrible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that was absolute dog water. Do it again. Right. But they understand, like, the severity of the statement is proportional to the humor, right? There's like a humor component to it. And underneath all of that, it's to communicate a message that, hey, that was trash because I know you're really like here. You're operating like here.
Yeah.
So
that's a big thing too. You can say, you know, I say this with my team, not to say I tell my staff that you tell kids to suck, but like, you know, there's a certain, you can justify a decent amount of things you say to a student if it's effort metric related, you know,
100%.
like if it's something where if a kid, like if you know a kid can hit, let's just say at a 10 and they're hitting at a 4 and you're like, you can say, hey, that sucks because like it's, you know, that they're a 10 normally. And you can see it that they're not hitting at that level. And it's like they're purposely doing it, or not, maybe not purposely, but like subconsciously, they're just not giving it, you know? Whereas let's just say a kid is trying to do like a triple to knee and he's never done it before and he keeps dropping it. You can't be like, that sucked, do it again, because he's trying, you know? Yeah. But like if they're obviously just, they're like, you know, or not yelling, you know, it's just, that's when you can kind of lay into them. But when it's just something where it's like they're new to it, or, you know, you can tell that they're pushing for it, it's a different way to coach for sure. And it's definitely not.
Yeah. Like that's all we want to see is like effort and focus, and match ideally exceeding the effort and energy that we put in as instructors. Right. You two probably have had this experience before too, where you're teaching somebody and you're like, oh my God, like I'm trying harder than they are right now. Right. Like I'm demoing stuff and I'm hitting harder. I'm locking out harder. Or I'm doing this technique in a more focused way. And it's frustrating. And that's where I feel like I like start to draw the line of like, all right, I need to, you know, discuss with the student, like, is this something you actually want to do or not? Right. But I could have a student that, you know, drops 15 times in a row in the practice. But if I see them really like trying to lock in, really better themselves, trying to focus themselves, that's all I really ask for, right? Like, are you giving 110% in the lesson? Are you listening when I'm speaking and communicating to me too? Because you could just listen, right? Like you could just hear me, like I could just talk at you and you're internalizing things and you're hearing what I'm saying. You can repeat back or understand whatever, right? But there's also a communication component, like a give and take with your student, right? Like I tell my students when I create choreography for you, and if you do not like it, turn over to me and tell me, Derek, I do not like that. That sucks. Like I want to do this instead, right? And
right away,
do this or that. And I'll take your idea, and maybe I won't say like, oh yeah, you want to do like a backward roll, like flat toss? Sure, we'll do that. No, I'll take your idea and I'll internalize it. I'll work with it and I'll realize it in a structured way, right? But you know, the communication aspect from the student is really important to understand where they're coming from, where they're at, what's their reality at this point in time. So I can do my job better, right? I can choose a different approach if what I'm telling them at that time is not working, right? Or I can suggest something else, right? So that I can get them to their best spot, because this is what a lot of coaches forget, right? You work for them, right? You work for the student. While there is like a power dynamic where like the instructor's in charge and they know more and they're you respect them because they have a certain level of ABC experience or whatever, you do work for the student and their parent, and your job is to support them in any which way possible to make them successful. So I think that's another component too, like just having that two-way communication so you really understand like what your student is feeling and how to again, push and pull the right buttons to get them where they need.
Yeah,
100%. That's all great
Well
stuff,
said, man.
for
Well
sure.
said.
I think another thing that's cool that it's easy for you guys to do it because you've been in their situation, like kind of calling back to when you're talking about like the mindset and knowing what to say in those situations would be really tough if you've never been in those situations. But you guys have been competitors and you've had, I'm sure, coaches that have done that for you. And so you can pass it down and you understand what they're feeling in some of those moments. So I think that's a big thing to it.
Yeah. And there's like definitely like a huge like pressure component too. And I think that's honestly something that's not talked about a lot, right? Is the amount of pressure that these kids are put under, right? And a lot of the times, it, like I said earlier, it is really the parent being the driver, right? And I think that's a necessary component as well, because the parent has the mental capacity to see the broader vision, right? They're more experienced, they're more mature. They're like, oh, this is what you're really doing. Where like a lot of times when you're a kid, you're kind of rolling with emotion. You're doing what's coming up right next, but you don't see this grander vision. So it's a lot easier to sell the parents on like, hey, you do all this work day in and day out, right? You show up to practice, you put in this 110% effort, you train, you travel, you show up to the tournaments, you're doing your homework on the plane, right? You're missing going to prom with your friends and you do the tournament and you win and you get the gold and boom. And that's what it is, right? And parents are like, yeah, that sounds good. Like little Johnny will do that, right? And little Johnny's like, oh yeah, like I'll do that, right? And then they actually go about like doing that. And it's a lot of work and a lot of pressure because there's a lot of monetary expenditure. There's a lot of time expenditure. And then you actually get to the tournament. And then you actually get to the tournament and you have to compete and hopefully win. And there's that whole like vacuum of pressure that happens within that event itself. So anything you can do to help.
Bite-sized type of like the kids. It can't be all at once. It can't be like a big a conversation you have with the parent once and you give them the whole broader perspective of it. It's like you have to feed that to the kid along the way. And as they kind of grow and develop, they start kind of seeing the bigger vision. Imagine, like you said, like dropping on a 10-year-old and being like, this is what you're like, it's something like that
years of practice and years of travel.
Yeah. Little here and there. And like lessons along the way, they have to experience the failure. Like, when you tell a parent, like, yeah, your kid has to experience losing, but then you tell the kid, hey, you have to experience losing. That's like, kid doesn't know how that feels. Yeah. That's its own thing. It's so, because parents, at their age, like, of course, growing up, they might've done a sport or been in a job where they, they failed and they had to feel that, but a kid hasn't felt it to that degree, especially on a circuit like this, where they're going to all these events and traveling. And like you said, all the money that's being put out, it's higher stakes, it's bigger. It's not just going to your local and getting, top 3 or whatever. It's it's kind of a bigger deal. So
and the messed up part about it is the tournament is supposed to be the happy time. And that's what I tell my students a lot, right? Like it's supposed to be like happy, like I get to show off my skills. There's there's a social to friend component that goes without being said, but like from a martial arts perspective, when you show up to the tournament, you should be ecstatic, right? To put your skills out on display. But a lot of students feel dread, right? Or they feel anxiety, right? And they feel, like I said, pressure before, right? And so, our job as instructors is not only to give them the ability to punch, kick, flip, front stance, horse stance, but also the tools to be able to take on that pressure in a situation, to understand what's going on, but be able to move forward with like good perseverance and strength. And that's the value proposition of doing NASKA and competitive martial arts, right? Not that, you're going to get like some athletic scholarship to college. You're going to get some NBA contract worth millions of dollars. You're not, right? But what you will get is the ability, the mental ability, like sort of a global mindset. You're pushed into a lot more adult or responsibility-oriented situations from a younger age. You become more worldly. You know how to talk to people, how to have small talk with 100 people over the course of the weekend, even though you're just trying to get dinner, like at Chili's or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like
the hello sirs.
Yeah, the hello sirs, like dream type conversation.
You learn it though, yeah. It's
And that's the experience that you get. And that's what I really hone in on with my students is, their unique challenge and giving them the tools for them to take that on and be most successful, like climbing that mountain, and then understanding the lessons that made them successful through that process, and then how they can take that and translate that to real world success, whether that's academic success or professional success or success in any other arena.
I was teaching a couple of days ago and I used that too. It was like we were at the end of the workout and every kid was dead and we were like, just 100 more jumping jacks. Just take them another step. And then at the end, I was like, guys, this is the moment you like snapshot in your head. And when you go into some type of thing that you have to do, whether it's a physical challenge or some type of thing, maybe class, anything like academic challenge. I say that with the black belt test too. Take yourself to that level. I remember when I did the black belt test with Bob.
Yeah.
The Bob test. And I remember I hadn't been to that point in a while. And I remember I was trying to like cut weight and stuff. I was like a little out of shape. And I remember over that summer, I cut like 30 pounds after that test because I took myself to that moment at that test. And when I got home, I'm like, all right, I've been to hell already, so I can get this done. But I tell my students that too, like this is what it is. You want to have these moments saved for the rest of your life when you have to go for that job interview and like you're a little nervous and you show up and you're like, yeah, I've been in an overall stage before. I've been in a position with 30 kids and everyone's staring at me. I can go over there and talk to some dude.
Yeah, I've presented myself, before, literally,
talk about, you talking about just things you might know in your field to a recruitment person compared to doing a triple spin to split and doing double full to whatever. Like, I think it's a little bit like when you compare it in your head and you have to go into that interview, it's like, this isn't hard. I've done harder. And then you can go do that and you just do it with confidence because you had that experience from back then. So.
Love it. Nice. So moving on to another topic. I know you guys are probably mainly known for forms and weapons and trad, obviously. But some people I'm sure know it. Derek, you already mentioned it a little bit with the fighting side of things. Talk a little bit about the fighting careers that we have here today. Vince, I want to kick it to you first.
Me?
Yeah.
So like I didn't really know how to do forms well. I just knew like I thought tricking videos were cool and I thought I could, I always wanted to be good at forms, but I don't think I had the resources at the time, but I did have the fighting resources. And I remember I didn't even like fighting when I was a kid, but I remember, I don't know if you guys know this name, but my fighting coach, Chris Molaris, he was an old AmeriKick guy, was really good back in the day. And he ended up becoming the head instructor at the school I was at. And he could do forms and stuff too. He did commas, he did forms, all that stuff. So like he taught a little bit of that to me. But that's kind of how I started. He was a really good fighter and he really took me under his wing for point fighting. And I think another thing too was I was a athletic, bigger kid. So when I first started point fighting in NASKA, I did a lot better than forms because I was just a bigger kid and I could kind of just out athletic a lot of the kids.
You were a bigger kid or you're still a bigger kid?
Nah, I kind of leveled out, but like I was like, but 12, 13 boys, I was like towering over kids. So that was kind of how I took off in the fighting. And then I just, I had a really good adult program that was at my school at the time. And I remember they just got me ready for tournaments. It was like, there was Monday, Wednesday night fighting. I remember like I had to go, remember Twin Towers tournament back in New York? Yeah. I think that was one of my first big NASKA wins. And I had like, those New York fighters were good too. And I remember I think it was Friday night was the tournament. And then Monday night was like, or Wednesday maybe was my last day to prep for it. And my adult class had like 30 guys in there. They were all like late 20s and they're just, I fought like 20 rounds and I'm fighting these older, bigger dudes. And at the end, I'm like, I feel good. I feel ready. So I kind of got into it through that. And then as I started doing well with that and started being exposed to the circuit more and just being part of the AmeriKick team, and having, teammates like Guthrie and Vinny and, Derek and all of them, I started seeing the tricking in the forums and all that. Me and Andrew Backus, we were at the same school together. So, you know, we tricked together all the time. We did forms together. He was more of a forms and tricker. So like I had him as influence. So the fighting kind of was my primary because it was just something I grew up and knew. And I had Vince, obviously, as the coach. And, you know, I just had the environment. You know, sometimes like the hardest thing to go back to your school and have to train by yourself in fighting, you know, and have to do the drills yourself and be good. You know, I know people do it, but it's hard, you know, but if you go back to a school and you have 30 plus fighters that just train all the time, there's certain fighting schools out there that do it. Like that's such an easy way to stay just conditioned and ready. But if you have to only fight when you go to tournaments, that's hard. You know, like you can only, you know, you have to fight a bag until you have to show up to a tournament. It's rough. So I think I just had a good environment at the time and it just kind of worked out. And then eventually forms happened.
Nice. Very cool. Derek, what about you with the fighting side of things?
Yeah, I always point sparred. Let's see, I started karate when I was 6. I was really point sparring a lot more when I was like starting 7 or 8. And then when I was about 11 years old, I started training with the legend, Michael Pombero. So I would drive down, me and my dad, we'd drive down to his karate school. Well, Bob White's karate school, which first of all, before I even go into Michael Pombero, Bob White karate. Too familiar? Yes? No? Kind of.
Heard
Bob
the
White,
name.
Tempo. The late Bob White, amazing guy. He always opened his karate school up to me and to many other fighters. Mike Pombero was a black belt under him. There are several other fighters like from that sort of circle, many of the all-stars fighters as well that were a black belt under him. Jamie Matthews, I don't know if you guys know him as well. It's a black belt under him. Extremely an extreme amount of respect for this guy. I cannot say enough nice words about Bob White, and he was always really welcoming into my karate school. So rest in peace to him and much respect to him. I'm very thankful for all of the years that he allowed me to come and train in his karate school. I would show up at 9:30 in Costa Mesa, which is like an hour and a half away from my house. My dad would drive with me every week, and I would do an hour and a half lesson with Mike, and he would just beat the living crap out of me. And I was like 12 years old. And it was like really great memories. He was a little bit crazy. He's like, he'd be like trash talking me while we were fighting. And I was literally 12. And he would like be like, I'm 40 and like, I'm doing sit-ups faster than you. And then like, he would like knock the wind out of me on purpose. And so like that kind of craziness was always like really good for being able to handle like high stress sparring situations, you know, because he would knock the wind out of me and then be like, okay, let's fight now. Right. And then like we'd be, you know, fighting. And then once our lesson would complete at 11, we would do the regular sparring class at the school, which was another hour. So it would just be like 2.5 hours of fighting where like I would just get absolutely decimated by him for an hour and a half. And then we'd like go straight into the sparring. I'd spar a bunch of people like different levels. Jamie Matthews is another one too, where he's like a good fighter, like out of that same area, a little bit older. And it would be the same deal. Like I was literally 12 years old and he knew like I was training with Mike. I was going and competing at these tournaments and stuff. We'd touch gloves. Immediately after touching gloves, like slide sidekick and just like right on the hip, like hard, you know what I mean? And that always like used to make me mad, but not like, I don't like this guy, but just like, I got to get over on this guy, you know, because like he's toughing me up and stuff. And so then, yeah, like over the years, like I grew up, you know, I'd spar a lot in the tournaments. I have, you know, a couple of like sparring like titles and stuff. And I remember coming back to Bob White's when I was much older. I was probably like 17 or 18. And I mean, I had trained with Mike like throughout the time, but this particular instance when I was 17 or 18 and I was sparring Jamie. And he was getting older, you know, and I just had this opportunity to like, I was like going for an axe kick and he like kind of like covered, but then left his body open, just completely rechambered, like full good chamber and extend and just like side kicked him straight into the mirror. And he goes over to my dad after that round where I just kind of like, you know, like the tables had turned a little bit.
Yeah.
I loved it. I love it. Blah, 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 blah. Like that's how crazy these guys are. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I
Would
have
ask him the sweater, gave it to us. Dad.
exactly. Like, I was very fortunate to train, with Mike, Raymond, Daniels, Jack Felton, even at times like Kevin Walker. I got a lot of rounds in. Ross Levine sometimes, like Jamal. Like many of the other all-stars as well. Just like being around that group, I was very fortunate to like get some minutes, hours, honestly, on the mat with them and some sparring. So yeah, that was great. And in 2014, we all went to Italy. We represented the U.S. at a Waco world Waco championship in Italy.
Nice.
Yeah, myself,
Daniel Schulte.
yeah, Vince, Daniel Schulte, we won the gold. So that was like definitely.
Is that what the infamous picture is from?
Yeah, that's what we're
one in your shrine
with Bob. Yeah, and so that's another thing. Like, one thing I really enjoyed for my fighting career is having Bob as a coach, because he doesn't really say much. Okay, he doesn't say much. What he communicates telepathically, and you fight better when he's sitting behind you, and that kind of harks back to what we were talking about with the whole coaching thing, just like having that that person behind you, that energy. He's sitting in the chair back there with that just stoic look on his face, and he would just he'd come out with some like random stuff sometimes, like just like sweep the leg, and then just like spinning back fist. I'm like, you're like, what are you talking about?
That's not allowed.
And you'd win, but you wouldn't do what he told you to do, but you would win.
Yeah,
and I think that's the X factor he brings to the coaching.
I think something too. It's such a different world. Like I remember when I went to compete one year, and I was having kind of like a fight lull, and then Mike, your coach, coached me and ended up winning my division. Dude, and I remember like he turned to me, he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna get you a few more points. Do this," and it was like such a different. And it worked, like everything he gave me. But it was just funny because it's such a different world being a point fighting coach and being a forms coach. There's a different game.
Yeah.
And I think that was when I really realized that when I was at that tournament, because just the way Mike coached me, it was just stuff that like really worked, and I was able to apply, and it really did make that difference. There is coaches that kind of like, can sit and like have that aura behind them, but there's some that just like, surgical right things. Yeah. And it's, for me, like when we have to hop in the chair and point fight coach, like I'm sure, we do our own way and we do well. And like Derek does, like we do well, but there's certain point fighting coaches that are just so good at it that just have such specific advice, I know from experience from that, it was just completely different world from forms, where in forms is a mentality thing. Point fighting is like in the middle of the round, saying certain things like,
and adjusting.
Yes, adjusting
on the spot.
Yeah, it's definitely a different world, and it's a lot of respect to those guys who do it.
Mm-hmm. I have a funny Bob Liker story.
Yeah, let's do it.
I think I may have told you guys, but it was Battle of Atlanta one year. I can't remember. It was 20. Yeah, I did double sword that year. So it was the backstage before our division was going, and I was it was just against all the guys, and like top 10 like was fighting before us. So as they finished, they're walking backstage, and Bob just so happens to walk in, and I'm like next to the door, about to walk in through that hall in the backside. And that year he was wearing some like sick dragon shirt.
That year, you mean every year?
Every tournament.
I've never seen him wear it. I've never seen him wear it since,
dude. Because he just blinds you. Like the next.
Yeah, this is a big dragon just on the side of his shoulder.
I know that one.
I know. Yeah. So I was sitting there. I was sitting there like ready to go, and then I saw that. I was like, man, that's a sick shirt. And he turns and looks at me and goes, thanks. Got it from your closet. And he pats me on the shoulder and walks I was like, what? I was so confused.
Got it from your closet. He complimented you.
Yeah, he like pats me on the back and walks off.
Yep. Yep. I'm telling
But
you.
yeah, yeah.
Big.
I want to ask about AmeriKick, the world competition team. Like going back to
Oh,
Well, we
those
signed
days.
NDAs, so no.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm talking like you guys.
The gang.
The years that y'all had. I mean, y'all had a squad back then. Y'all had Mike, like prime. Well, I wouldn't say prime Mike, but I mean forms. I mean Mike towards the end of his years. Y'all had Mike. Y'all had Stowell. You had the Presleys. I mean, Jared,
Myself,
Becca,
Vince.
yourself, Vince. Yeah, obviously.
Dang.
But
Thor guy, Thor, Steven Grass.
Steven Grass.
Dude,
Oh,
Steven Grass.
Dawson, you should know Steven Grass. You know, come on.
Of course,
guy.
of course, I know who he is. Yeah,
Luke Scott.
Luke
Yeah.
Scott.
yeah.
Originator.
Vinny,
Webster
Vinny.
toss, the first Webster
Yeah,
toss.
yeah, right.
Vinny Scarduzio.
Yeah, so
Yeah, man.
that's another one. So kind of just talk about what was some of the best memories that you guys had, in the tournament, off the mat, like
Beating Paul Mitchell definitely was a good one. Just taking home dubs over them, just over and over. And love you guys.
Yeah.
Love you guys. But that's what I mean. Competition. Competition makes
That's right.
everyone
Yeah,
better.
yeah,
That was
of course,
definitely from a team perspective. We're like, nah, we gotta make our own statement about what type of martial artists we are and what we can do, and always going up against what it's kind of like underdog type situation. Big, going up against the big dogs, trying to take the dub. So there's a ton of fun memories with that, with everybody. I mean, I
remember one year after winter camp, we all went to Topgolf, and as the juveniles we were, started doing like bow tricks with the
golf clubs.
Yeah, like like zero gravity swing and stuff.
Dude, Ross Levine did some sick golf. He did some sick bow tricks with the golf club.
seen a video.
Like a shoulder neck roll, but dropped it off the balcony or
On
something.
the edge. Yeah.
That one's great.
That was fun. Yeah.
That's super fun. I remember we used to pants each other a lot, which is not really permissible these days, but back then it was really funny.
Yeah, and this I have a story because this helped me trend, I guess. When Michael Guthrie created his Instagram, his first post ever was Derek pantsing me in a Subway.
Oh my god, guys! This was so funny. This was so. I had barely known Vince. I barely knew Vince. I had known him for less than. I think. Well, Vince, didn't we meet at that winter camp? That was the first time I met.
Like 2 days. Yeah.
Yeah, for 2 days. Okay, it's one of the lunches in the winter camp, right?
No, we were at Subway.
Yeah, well, we drove there, right? Yeah. During lunch, right? We go to the Subway. Vince is in line. I'm like, yo, Guthrie, take a video, right? And I like a little hoodlum. Like I put my hood on, right? Like I was wearing a hoodie. It's cold. It's in winter in Kansas City, right? And like I sneak up over to him, and he's right in front of the counter, like wearing his Vince sweatpants or whatever. And he pulls his wallet out, so his hands are occupied, right? He's opening his wallet, like trying to take his card out. Like fat fingers couldn't pull it out, right? And I go and I just like waistband to ankles, right? In the middle of Subway. And he tries to stop it by bending his knees, right? His knees slam into the counter.
So like imagine going to Michael Guthrie, the goat of tricking's Instagram page. You see triple cork, dub, crazy swing chain, kid getting pants.
This was like when Instagram barely supported videos. Like there wasn't reels or anything like that. Like
right.
It was just like this, and they like cropped the video, and it's just a little video, and it's just Vince getting like absolutely
Nintendo 64 quality of me just getting decked at a Subway. So
so that one was really funny. We pants each other a lot. Like Jake Presley pants me really bad at compete. Like full commando.
What
about outside full commando, right? Yeah. That was really fun. What else?
Is there any martial arts related moments?
Martial arts?
What
What are you talking about?
I mean, you
You
said
did
Paul
martial arts?
Mitchell.
Yeah, I remember. I really reminisce about the AmeriKick winter camps that were at
The
Overland
dojo
Park.
camp. Yeah.
Yeah, like the
Mhm.
dojo camp, because that was when it was like, it was small enough to be in the dojo, but it was like it was growing and like the prestige was high enough where it was like almost busting out of it. So like the whole place is packed. We're all working out. Like the windows are fogging up and stuff. And I just remember those camps being very intense. I remember Reed was teaching at one of those camps, and him and maybe Becca were both teaching a section at the same time. And he was talking about overhead strikes. And he's like, you guys are overhead striking too low. Get those tips up. And Becca just started like dying laughing. And they just kept repeating, like, bring your tips up in the camp. I remember that was like really funny. And then I also remember in that camp that just like how brutal the final conditioning section was.
The last hour.
Yeah.
We tried to simulate that at our camp, but like
it wasn't the same.
Dude, it was like I remember because at the end of it, I turned to Vinny Scarduzzi. I was like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. And he looked, he goes, your black belt test wasn't that hard? I'm like, no.
Yeah, no.
It was like an hour. Each instructor had 5 to 10 minutes to do whatever they wanted. I remember, I think it was Ross's drill. We had to put our arms around each other. And like,
yes, that's exactly what I pictured.
We went down and we had to do like 3 little bunny hops to like a tuck jump as a group, right? We did it for 10 minutes.
Yeah, everyone has their arms around like each other. Like not everyone, but it's like a group of 4.
Yeah.
Put your arms around each other's shoulders and you're in a circle, right? And then you drop down like where your knees are like fully bent and do like 3 small bounces and then like pop up and tuck jump for 10 minutes straight, right? And just like no mercy. Like no,
and that was one. Like Vinny did his gymnastics upper body. So it was just everyone just, and then at the end of it, Bob comes out, silverback and all, and he's just like reverse punch. And we're just like, oh. And we're like,
just like locking in on those.
Dude, and there's just a silence. He looks around, he just goes, fighting stance. And we're like,
lock in. Yeah. I mean, speaking of Bob, like one thing I'll say from a general sense is like Bob motivational speeches.
Oh, dude.
And like, it's a shame that like 99% of them are probably not on video, but they touch your soul.
Yeah.
They make you reflect inwardly.
Yeah.
Right. And like, you feel like you're part of like a bigger group. And so like always during those winter camps, we had that train hard, win easy mantra. That was definitely like a big thing. And he would just be like, after everyone is dead, like after that conditioning section, he just comes in with that like mega wisdom, and so I definitely want to shout out, Bob's motivational speeches. While probably many people on the circuit, you probably don't hear him talk too much, right? Or be too loud. You see a little bit different, like when you're in that environment and it's his domain, right? And this is, if you think about it, like really an extension of the community that he's built up over a long period of time, that Jarrett has really expanded significantly and other members of the AmeriKick organization. But, at the root of, that AmeriKick Overland Park and what emanates from there, where, that is like my like home karate school at this point. The root of it is Bob, right? And there's a lot of lore, a lot of stories that get told, especially during the black belt test, which I won't comment specifically on because, that's sort of a thing we keep internally, like with each other. That's literally an NDA, not literally, but I guess maybe like, verbal NDA or whatever. But there's just, that sort of lore, those sort of discussions and talks, like, and mentorship. Because it's not just Bob, but it's also the people that, he's collected around him. It's Dino, it's Gary, it's many names that I could say that you guys would not even know because it's just like attuned to the organization. Sure. And just like the wisdom and the connection and the community that he fosters, especially like among the black belts. I think that's it's really special. And it's a reason why many of the black belts each year almost do this like pilgrimage type thing for the black belt test that they hold annually, which is I think been during the summer these past years. And many black belts come in, like it's usually around like 40 to 60 people. Prior black belts, I mean, current instructors, you know, Vince and I, we go, and it's always great to have that community. I remember, you know, when I was younger, going to travel to stay with Jarrett. And this is at the time he was in law school and he was living with Bob and Jill, right? His parents.
Yeah.
And I was staying in their guest bedroom. And there's like a couple memories that are fun from that. One, I remember we like stayed up late and played like UFC on like the Xbox or whatever, and then we like went to Dairy Queen. Like, I remember that, just being very fond of that memory because it was just fun, like kind of just having that, like just kind of chilling, you know.
Yeah.
I remember waking up at 5 a.m. before he had to go to work, you know, and we were training in the garage. I'm barely asleep, and then I went back to sleep. Right. And I wake up because I'm supposed to go to the karate school with Bob during the day. And I come into the kitchen and I'm again barely awake. And Jill is in there like cooking something and she's making like omelets or whatever. And she's like putting like, she has like all these different ingredients. She's like, do you like spinach? Do you like onions? Do you like blah, blah, blah? She's asking me if I like all these different things. And Bob's like, he's a boy. He'll eat it. Just put it all in there and just like shoving an omelet towards me. So yeah, I liked I like that memory a lot. And then just and having talks with him and going to the karate school and then just like being over there, it's a good vibe. It's really fun.
You can always go back to, you know, like, and it's cool seeing them all, like, you know, like when we went back for the test, seeing like everybody, like Henry and all them all grown up and being able to just kind of like hang out, train with them, go to the test, hang out afterwards. It really is a community. Definitely.
Yeah, super fun. So I guess beyond any of like the actual karate that I did, like I guess I remember times that I won. You know, I remember like, you know, certain tournaments or whatever. But I really remember just a lot of the fun times, a lot of laughing.
Yeah.
Lucas Allen was like a good friend of mine. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He was more of a fighter. And so we would like split hotel rooms a lot of the time if I was like going to stay with Jared, or we would stay in the same hotel room with Jared and Becca, and then me and Lucas would like split a bed. And he was just very Southern. And so I just remember, you know, not to offend you, Dawson, but you know, I'd may say like, oh, your voice sounds like a banjo, and like make a banjo like banjo sounds and stuff. And he thought it was hilarious. And coming from very different walks of life, you know, like coming from me, like growing up in a suburb in Southern California, and him growing up in like South Carolina, right? Like out there, right? And so that coming from two different walks of life, but like connecting through martial arts and like having a good time irrespective, you know, and just having fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's awesome, man. We appreciate you guys coming on and, you know, sharing some perspective, whether it's coaching perspectives, competitive mindset, all that good stuff, and just the fun times. A couple cute little skits along the way too. Yeah, we appreciate you guys coming on. So, we want to see you guys at Ocean States, right? So a couple weeks from now, we'll see you there. You got the squad coming out, so it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah. Is your demo team competing?
You worked with them. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, dubstep.
Nice.
No, remember Chet had me convert to that, like the hip hop thing.
I'm disappointed, Vince, to say
Make
the
it a
least.
surprise. Make it a
Oh,
surprise.
I have some other songs. I'm gonna use it for my 5 and 6 year old team later on in the year.
Nice.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like dubstep. You gotta. What I've learned with the dubstep is you gotta start it early. You know, you gotta let it take.
About like Tiny Tiger's age, as like
just start blaring it, and then
right. It's actually part of the take home package. You know, when they get their first uniform, their white belt, and then a CD of dubstep
playlist.
CD on dubstep. Yep.
Well, I think that explains.
Demo will be there. Sync, which will be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some
A lot of individuals.
Wait, aren't you the sync guy, Ben?
All right.
Ben, yeah, you're the sync guy.
Why?
Dude, you're the guy that does the sync.
That's right. That's right.
Power, baby.
Anyway, we This has been episode 6 of the Clean Truth.
Yep.
We appreciate you guys for coming on. Shout out always to Century Martial Arts for the support with Sport Karate Zone. And thank you to Sport Karate Zone for hosting us. Thanks to everybody who was tuning in. And we will catch you guys next time. Peace out.
See you guys.
The shirt.